Thank you very much, Otto. And thank you for showing up here. And congratulations to those who made it. There's a strike, I've heard today in the morning. Pleasure to be here and tell you something about what we could do for the business. I'm not from the business like the speaker before, but I'm now 6 years with Denodo and have some experience, as Otto already mentioned, running the region, Austria and Eastern Europe. And the topic is, and I think in the program it was cut costs, not innovation. So I would say cut costs through innovation. This is maybe a better title. And obviously, I will also talk about AI. But before we talk about AI, I think we should talk about IT trends, which are relevant for data management in that regards. And then I will talk about the ways how to realize a corporate data fabric and modernize ecosystems. I think we have something to offer and a lot of experience during the changing waves we had in the last years. And how this can help realizing AI use cases or AI strategies, and what is the advantage. So basically the DNA of Denodo was and still is since decades is look what technology waves will be ahead and to integrate them. So we are a data integration company. And our approach is very different, and we've seen that it's becoming a more and more successful approach as there is more and more dynamics. And I will explain that in a minute. And I just verified this next 2 slides last week, talking to a financial services customer, because it's always important for me, are we on the right way? Is it okay? Is it only our view on the world, what we're talking about? But I got in nearly all points, I got, yes, this is really what is coming up. And what we see for this year is, even Gartner says the investment will become a little bit lower than last year, but there's still a lot of investments. And a lot of companies are running into cost problems because of various reasons. And we see a pattern we've seen in the past before. Especially with AI, I think there are a lot of traps in terms of cost. Everybody does it. I need to invest. Oh, there's a huge platform. My neighbor or the sister company is doing that. I have to do it as well. So, of course, there are plans, there are strategies, there are cost evaluations. But it's on the surface, it looks very similar. You have to drill down a little bit, and in this regard, in terms of data management, to find out what it's really about. What we see in first point is the rise of logical and federated architectures. That means the companies are moving away from the monolithic data lakes they had. Yes, there are lake houses, concepts, and so on. And they're going toward distributed architectures. So that can mean a data fabric concept, classic, more hierarchical maybe, or it can be a data mesh concept, which was a trend last year's. Meanwhile, we don't see a lot of companies anymore talking a lot about that. They're talking more about domain-oriented concepts, which are maybe a mixture between the two concepts. And we see an increased demand for interoperability and unified data ecosystems. That means that the distributed architectures, they will drive the demand for a seamless interoperability. We cannot afford anymore, as we still lacking talents, and we have cost pressure, to invest time in long projects just to implement the technology. And we see there is an ongoing mixture, as some companies already went into the cloud, between on-premise, cloud, multi-cloud. So the companies are sometimes not very clear where they have to go. There was a trend, so everybody went into the cloud, and especially in the Austria and Eastern Europe region, there was Microsoft first, with Azure coming up. Also because of regulations, because they could prove that the data is in the European Union, for example. But then Google came up because some, for any reasons, said, okay, the cost on Azure is too high, the dependency is a risk, I have to go to another cloud. And we know there is not only Google, there is AWS, it's still a big player in the market. Maybe Alibaba is coming up in the future. So the companies are very often struggling. What is the right strategy in terms of where do I have to move the data? Is it maybe good to have it still on premise? And the hybrid and multi-cloud data management is, therefore, from our perspective, the new norm. And a colleague sent me just recently a very, very interesting article. It's talking about cloud recalibration, which is an interesting topic. That does not mean that everybody is going now multi-cloud. No, it means that companies are thinking more and more, and not at least because of the political situation, what they have to bring back on premise. And especially with AI initiatives, maybe you just heard about the Chinese, the deep space, is it the right word, deep space? I don't know. AI, that they had some security lags. Yeah, so it's a very attractive, maybe AI model, but the data is not safe, so you have to think about which kind of data do you want to really kind of publish. And there will be a much more greater focus on product lifecycle management. Why? Because, and we heard that we are thinking more and more in data products. So that means we are moving away workload we had in the IT to the business. And we enable the business who understand the data to do this jointly with the IT. And we cannot afford, like we had 10 or 20 years ago, that we send a request to IT, they do it, and I have it in 1 or 2 weeks. So we need to go faster with the business as well. And then we have the AI topic. So AI for data management. All data management vendors, and there's different styles of, and not all do it in a logical way. Still quite a lot of companies do it in a physical way. But they need to expand, and so we did data management for AI-driven data management. That means we need a better level of automation, and we need a more intelligent data execution. And also the other way around. We need data management to enable AI. And I will explain this later on. What we mean by this is basically on RAG models, RAG enrichment. And that means also we have to continue the shift towards the federated governance. So the systems become, as they are domain concepts, more and more distributed. And that means we also have to overcome the increasing regulatory at the moment, because in my space, financial services institutes play a major role. DORA is a big driver. A lot of companies are really struggling with that. But how do I implement that? If I want to enable a business user through an LLM also be compliant with DORA, this is not an easy one. And also coming along with that, it's a strong focus on hyper-personalization. So how do I enable a business user really getting only the data he or she needs to have in order to be compliant, to be secure, and not getting just the whole bunch of information and then starting to search or finding it out? How do I enable it really for the individual, for a dedicated role? And this is a challenge we not only can solve. This is also, and we heard about it, a consulting topic, but you need to have the right technology in place. Otherwise, you're running into a big project where you're starting to very granular try to solve the problems for every individual. And this is not what you want, because you do not have the time. And of course, and that's why how we started the presentation, there's an increasing emphasis on cost optimization and sustainability. And sustainability also not only means being energy efficient because of the energy costs, especially in regards with AI. This can become a topic. It means also to be more cost efficient in terms of data storage and computing power. We've seen, and especially in Austria, I've seen a lot of customers trying to do the same thing like they did before. So just move the data they had to another store. Yes, the new technologies are much more faster, the front end easier to implement, to use, but it does not solve the basic problems. It does not solve the problem, where is my data? Where do I find it? So the new normal is to have, to manage data systems that are more distributed than ever. They are, as we said, multi-cloud. They are maybe back on-premise. They are in different locations. They're in different regions. And the technology diversity, and especially because I was talking about the big banks, they have big subsidiaries. Yeah? They have a holding, and I've seen the fights between the big subsidiaries and the headquarters, where they have different infrastructure ideas in place. But you have to define a unified data governance. You have to enable them really to align to a corporate strategy and then make it happen individually in the locations, in the regions. And to enable them to think in data products and require and come and bring the coordination and governance across the distributed teams. And yeah, last but not least, to give the right people the right data they need and enable them sharing, because it's not only done if I give the individual the data they need, they also need to collaborate, because if the business user has questions to other, it doesn't have to be complicated. Otherwise, you're losing time. And what I call, or we call, the modern or the Denodo approach of data management is that we are really to enable to unify the data silos. That means that we have a platform, a layer in place where we're able to manage, to access at one point the distributed data systems, not to store, to enable the access. And to be able also, once I know the data, and this may be a long way with other technologies, to do the federated governance in a very granular way, in a flexible way, because technology waves can change, and we see this all the time. And with that, I'm also able to do hyper-personalization in a very granular way. Talking about the platform, it's that we have the sources, and we have in the middle the logical data management, and on the top the consumers. That means if I'm thinking like a data fabric net, I have the possibility to look from different angles. That means that can be from different regions, any way of compounds. There can be departments, there can be claims, like from a claims view look on it, like from a product view look on it. With all the underlying sources, the real-time sources or old legacy systems, newer systems in the cloud, on-premise, and also simple being able to access from a typical BI tool. There are different vendors who are talking about this kind of data federation, but what I always see, and especially with the big vendors, yeah, they have discovered, I mentioned this already before, they're looking from their ecosystem. They're looking not holistically. And if we're talking about, and we heard about that from a corporate strategy, yeah, I have to drive this down, be able to drive this down from a corporate strategy across all the systems, across all the regions. And this can become a challenge. Some, and I already mentioned, they tried to do this going one way into the cloud with a very, very comprehensive offering from, for example, Microsoft or Google, but they've seen it does not solve the whole problem. Because in other regions, the one they have maybe Google, the other ones maybe have Azure, the next one they have it more on-premise, and have to bring it together. I have to define a governance for them. So I can start to change them and all go to the cloud. Those kind of projects fails that they go in all to one cloud over all regions. So it will be always diverse. And so I have to do this web in a very simple way in terms of management. And this is our approach, that we connect to all the possible sources, no matter where they are, if they are in the cloud or on-premise, and then make them look as a one-access layer. It looks basically as a metadata-base, but it's much more. It's not a metadata management database. It's not a data catalog. It's a platform. And you can build it up in several levels, in several stages. And in this example, we have 5 layers. It's a data source. We connect it. We have a simple view, and we call this an abstraction layer or base view. And on top of that, I can build it in any model like I want. In this example, I have the business level with the retailer sales product view. But on top of that, I can build an application level. And I can maybe build a next level for a different entity. And the thing is, what I found interesting when I started with Denodo, and I needed some time to understand this, it enables you to change your data strategies on the bottom. If you say, okay, I have it now on-premise, I have to move it on the cloud, you do not lose the modeling, you do not lose the logic you have built once, you can exchange the sources. If you say, okay, I have now other front ends, I have maybe now AI to connect all the sources. You have the logic in a compliant way already in place. Let's look what that means in terms of data product lifecycle. So we have at the very beginning the data discovery, and we enable the customers to see the data products and the data sets for exploration. We can do data sampling, we can do prototyping, and then hand it over to maybe the data engineers, to enable them for modeling, for description, for the reporting, for the metadata, for the access rules we need, define or setting up projects for data quality. This is also a possibility you can do with this platform, that you more refine the data quality, and then make it ready for implementation. And what we can do is to enable the model of data sets and to giving the data assets protected, to make it, before you think about, is this right now, already have the compliance in place you need. You can involve the people through a data marketplace we are also offering with our platform. And then make it ready for deployment, for a scalable deployment. And this is also, some fall in a trap. There are other technologies who are put on physical storage, where they say, okay, we do it now all in a kind of data lake, and then we have it all in place, no matter why, it's not costly. Then they start and they see how it rises, because the data becomes more every day, exponentially. And that makes it very difficult for some of them really to then filter it out again and make it more easily and less cost intensively. Because a data lake, once it grows with technology, with certain technologies, becomes very expensive. And then make it ready for consumption. So we're now compliant with the data, we have everything in place, we have the individual enabled, and then they can do the data discovery in one platform. And then they have the universal data access based on their role in the region with the compliance they need. In terms of building smart apps with GenAI, we're setting on the retrieval augmented generation. Why? Because it's cheaper than if you, for example, train a custom LLM or fine-tune domain-specific LLMs, and it's much more easier than the other. And I will explain, based on the Denodo platform, how we do this. So normally we start, if I say, okay, I want to go on vacation, I have a large language model, it goes to a vector database, it looks into the file system, and then the files are vectorized, and I get the answer. This is a quite easy to implement way for non-structured information. But what about if there is a more refined question, or I need to access to sensitive data? For example, where is the package that I ordered last week? What is my current balance? What is the current stock of an item? What is the supplier paying? And how does the quarter forecast look for next year? And therefore, I need to access to different kind of systems. I need maybe to access to a SaaS systems or payment applications or an ERP or a CRM in the cloud or an enterprise data warehouse. And this is not enough with a normal approach through RAG models, because the information needs to be fresh, it needs to be secure, and very often it's scattered, as we see here, on a variety of systems. So what we can do here with Denodo is, if we, for example, ask the question, how many loans have been granted this week, we are going to search the tables with a vector B. We have a generation of the query, an automatic generation, and we have the query execution running through the Denodo platform, creating the select statements, and then giving back to the large language models. And this is possible because we can provide a single access. It does not matter, like I mentioned before, where the data resides, where the data is stored from our point. And we are able to do like a global security policy, what we call it, a fine-grained access control. And we are able to access to real-time data if we need, if we want to. So it's always accurate and it's always secure. So to summarize that, what we can do with the Denodo platform is lower the costs and higher the efficiency through reducing the infrastructure and integration costs by accessing data virtually instead of replicating it. We are coming along with replication systems. Not to misunderstand it, we are not saying throw it all away, you only need the old systems and Denodo, and that's enough. We are always in conjunction with data storage systems. It makes more sense, and that's what I'm talking about, to do additionally this kind of logical approach, because otherwise you fall in the same trap you had in the last waves, that you creating new silos and new technology waves coming up, and then you have to move it again. With this kind, you can define which kind of cloud provider you're using and where you want to go to, and which kind of lakehouse, data warehouse technology you're choosing. And putting the layer in between makes it much easier for you to control, and especially in terms of AI, it enables you much more faster really to set up useful cases instead of just playing around, not knowing, maybe waiting. This enables you by now really doing useful business applications with AI. And it gives you flexibility in very uncertain times. I don't think, especially this year, it will be not calmer. So this gives you maybe a little bit more security about what comes up in the future. Thank you very much for your attention. If we have any questions, also my colleague Jan from Presales is here, and we would be happy to see you on the booth and maybe explain a little bit more what we're talking about. Thank you.